From the mountains and thick forests of eastern Norway to the high seas of Skagerrak, and finally support from the heart of Denmark. Vad sker män? Was geht ab in der Welt? Vem? Who? Wer? It's Pat and Troy!
And we're live, folks. Welcome back here to this week's episode of The Corner, where we have our regular Alexa, or Troy, as you like to be called, on here. And in this week's episode, we will be discussing some different stuff, like the continued coronavirus, the continued restrictions it contains, and how it might even lead to a centralized world government at some point. Now, do you have any thoughts before I start rambling on here, Troy?
Nothing. Oh, sorry. I bumped into my new microphone there. If any of you listeners had noticed that I seem to be coming over a little bit more smoothly here. So I bought this new Swive microphone on a Norwegian website called Komplett for it was half off. So I don't know. I guess it sounds pretty smooth at this point.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, and you gotta admit that it is coming through much more clearly, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, all right. The coronavirus. I was just talking with my family about this during this weekend. That Sweden, the number of deaths has increased to over 5,000. By the way, to inform you about that. Anyway, but back to you with the newest breaking news that you have.
Like, I'm just baffled that this shit is still continuing to go on, because yes, I maintain my bullshit, contradictional as it may be, that this whole thing is bullshit. It is. And here's an example. The other day I was sitting at work and I was watching the news while eating my lunch. And then we have some politicians in Denmark that is continuing to pushing through climate and CO2 and going green, like they're on some fucking warpath for this shit. Have you noticed that?
No, haven't really.
It's like completely insane how much this is in the news now. It's like it's almost nothing about coronavirus on Danish news. It's all about, going green, and now we're going to, sort our trash. So everybody's going to get 5, 6, 7 different fucking trash can bins to sort through food waste and plastic and paper and whatnot, and glass and so on, right?
Yeah.
And then, then something, catches my ear, where a Danish politician says, regarding, that they're going to need more money, of course, for this climate change and stuff. And, they can't really raise the taxes, the income tax. So they're going to get the money other ways. So, through I don't know, like through taxations and other items, gas and so on. But then he says, and after, I quote, and now that this corona crisis is over, then we need more money to get through that too.
Did he actually say, and now that this coronavirus is over?
Yeah, he actually said that. He actually said that. Wow. And I was like sitting there and I was saying, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh my god.
I think it was a miss. I think it was a miss because he, but nobody caught it. But he says this because like they are just so focused on getting the money in for this climate shit that they're pushing now, right?
Mm.
So now it is nothing about the corona thing, and I'm like, and like they're also like really silent about more bailout packages and more bailout loans to struggling businesses. And I think
No,
and I think because it's not a topic anymore. And
no.
when we look back to like how all this was handled, it was handled like shit worldwide.
Yeah,
There's
especially in the U.S. and also we've talked about Sweden as well, who like in the beginning they were not shutting anything, they were not doing anything about it, they were not taking any precautions, and that has led to where we are now, where we have very high death numbers in a lot of the in a lot of places in the US and also in Sweden. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I also believe that it's not it's not all on the coronavirus that all these people died, because
no,
you cannot argue that like a shit ton of these people had bad health from the get-go.
no,
Like if we take Italy, as as a starting example here, where everything was like hitting like crazy during the beginning of the outbreak in Europe, then it was because in Italy, there's multiple generations living under one roof, right?
no,
So a 5-year-old grandkid or something coming home from kindergarten with coronavirus, seemingly unaffected, and probably his parents too, but his grandparents, who are smokers and bad health from the get-go, gets it and dies, right? And
no,
this was like happening all over Italy, and also it's a shit ton of smokers, and yeah, and like generally bad health in Italy, right?
no.
So I would say that that was a huge helping factor to the death toll there, and the same goes for Spain, and the same goes for the U.S., and the same now goes for Brazil, because people also have like shit poor health in Brazil. Did you know? Did you know that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. I mean, especially. I mean, like a lot of the. Sorry, I just gotta like get my keyboard straightened out
Yeah,
here. No, anyway, like a lot of these Southern America countries and also like countries in Africa are just not equipped with regards to medical professionals, and also especially with hygiene, they're just not as far along, and that's
yeah.
why
No,
in these countries it is much more difficult to handle the situation.
I agree on you like on a lot with like a lot of South American and African countries that this is the case, but not for Brazil though. I mean, like they did have the resources to counter this, but the president, I don't know. Can you like check out? Can you pull out his name real quick? What his name is? But
Yeah, yeah,
he went all batshit crazy regarding this because he believed that the coronavirus was a complete scam. It's nothing to worry about, and it's bullshit. And I'm not going to close the country down. Then he proceeds to fire the Minister of Health or
yeah.
Secretary of Health.
We're talking about Jair Bolsonaro here.
Yeah, yeah. So so he's largely part of like he's largely guilty like regarding what's happening there, since like he chose to just simply ignore it. But
Yeah,
it could also be that that he has like seen the numbers on Sweden, and like thought to himself that, well, these numbers isn't worrisome for my country, so let's
yeah.
just roll with it.
Mm.
So yeah, then this shit happens, and it was handled wrong for everybody by the get-go. Because if you can remember in the beginning when all this shit happens, it wasn't really anybody making decisions. It was just politicians looking at what are they doing in other countries. Yeah, okay, then let's do that.
Yeah, and as we can see here on worldometers.info about the coronavirus, we can link to that in the description. We see that the U.S. Is that Brazil is actually on number 2 over the most cases in the world right now, just right after the U.S. Now, of course, the U.S. is because there is a lot more people living in the U.S. than in Brazil, but and that's why they have a lot more. But if you look at the ratio of the people of how many of out of how many people live in Brazil, it is significantly a lot more. So this is actually surprising that that Brazil is in the ratio of how many people per their total population have been diagnosed with it. They're actually on
Yeah,
number 2 over all countries, over all time cases of
yeah,
corona.
but they also live pretty tight in Brazil.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Considering you can't have like the entire population
But I mean
spread
that
out.
it does make sense with regards to what you're talking about, that he was not taking the proper precautions in the initial phase.
No,
So then
uh,
it makes sense that they're on number 2 right now.
like maybe it wouldn't have like mattered if their population was spread out and there was a bunch of people of the Brazilian population living scattered around the Amazon or whatever, right? Then
We
it then
yeah,
then
yeah.
it was then it would have been a maybe, but there isn't. Like most part of like Brazil's population is concentrated to major cities like Brasilia, Sao
Yeah.
Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in these centers. So, and especially like in the favelas where you have like a bunch of poor people cramped up together,
Yeah,
then then that's what you get for this.
yeah.
In the US though, like Trump has also, shut down and gone back on it, and like won't do anything more to lock down the country or something because he wants the economy to keep rolling. Probably, in my opinion, it is a gamble, but it is a strategic move because he don't want to pull out billions of dollars for bailouts. Because
Yeah.
if he do, then he's going to defend this action during the re-election of his presidency this year, or re-election attempt, if you
Yeah.
want to be politically correct. Um,
In fact, I think it's at this point it's probably just a quick update on the total amounts of deaths in the U.S. We're talking about 128,437 total deaths in the U.S.
yeah,
Over 57,658 deaths in Brazil.
yeah,
Um,
and he views this as acceptable.
who?
President Trump views this
Oh, yeah,
as acceptable. And again,
yeah.
it is a gamble because of the re-election that's coming up, and he
Mm,
don't want to defend why he was giving out billions of dollars to those and those and those and not these people, right?
yeah, yeah,
But he can defend, or at least try and defend, why he chose not to lock down again, by saying that well, the economic loss to the U.S. would simply be too great, and
yeah.
that he doesn't want to plunge that country into another economic depression. So that's one of the cases that we got going on there. Um, And then, I'm sorry, I keep circling back to this climate bullshit that I'm seeing on the news. But yeah, like, seriously, you have watched none of it?
No, it's not. I mean, like, it's not exactly what I find most interesting.
Okay,
Because like, there's not much new about it.
okay,
Like,
I'll say something like more shocking, and why I think that too is complete bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, like
So
you're saying it yourself. I mean, if it's complete bullshit, then like, but
no, it will.
obviously, it must still be interesting enough to follow because
No, because it will go out. It will have a repercussion for everybody, and the repercussion will be that we're going to have to pay more taxes in some way or the other, which is something I just don't get because we are living in one of the most heavily taxed countries in the world. We are taxed 47% in income taxes, regular income tax from our work.
yeah,
And on top of that, if you are to be freaking successful and make a little less than $90,000 or thereof that range, then all of a sudden every dollar you make above that is taxed by 67 freaking percent.
yeah.
Like
But what does that have to do with the climate change?
that, what that has to do with the climate change is that this number will go up. This number will go up one way or the other, if not by
Can you underline that? Like, what is your
like
source for that?
well, we can just just Google in Danish, klimaavgifter 2020 or
Yeah.
politik.dk, and then you will have up. Like, of course, they're not saying it yet, but they're saying that it's going to be set like avgifter or taxes on it. But they're not sourcing where these are going to be taken from. But if it is the common man in the street that is going to pay for it, they are going to have to tax the common man. So we're probably not going to get higher income tax per se, but it is very, very, very likely that they will do something smart, like, hey guys, look at what they're doing in Norway with all these 400 toll booths around the country, collecting toll road
Yeah,
money.
nah, man. I
Yeah,
don't think that that's not. I don't think that's gonna happen in Denmark. Like the because the Danish system does not work in that way. Like because we have these big taxes, the Danish infrastructure system has always been paid of the taxes, and I know this. This is not
no,
something I need to. This is
it
not
is pressure. It is a high pressure on it. So I'm like saying that they need to be very careful,
where
like
like and
on
we need
taxation.
to like I
A
just
high pressure on the common man with taxes.
um
It is. Uh,
I'm trying to like figure out like because like I have to be careful about not typing too much because that's gonna interfere with my microphone here. So I actually have to like put it underneath the desk in order to like hide the keystrokes a little bit. But I don't know. Is it loud if I type like uh
no, it's not spiking. Well,
okay.
I'm just saying that it is pressured, and I'm hearing you that you're saying that that would never happen here. But guess what, man? We said that up there too. We said that would never happen, and then some fucking bullshit government party takes power that said that they would never do this, and what do you know? All of a sudden, this shit is spiking up all around the country. And I will say this, man. I will say this before I leave the topic again. If it happens, if it happens, it will start small. Like a few tall booths around Copenhagen, Odense, and Aarhus. The three biggest cities in the country.
Yeah, no, no, no,
And
no,
then
no. I don't.
it will
I can't find. I mean, I'm searching up on this for the past minute now. So like, I can't find any breaking news on this. Like even slightly. So I just want to put that in there. This is completely like this is just speculation on your side. There's no articles or anything that or breaking news that support this hypothesis that you're talking about.
no, but
Um,
it's going to
uh,
come. It's going to come in the news. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We're going to get
that's your conspiracy theory.
some European
I
Union
believe
bullshit green workers.
you're talking like, what is that the dude on the Joe Rogan podcast who often comes up with these conspiracy theories?
Eddie Bravo.
Eddie Bravo, yeah. This is turning into quite an Eddie Bravo podcast right now, where you're sitting there warning people, people of Denmark, you're going to get 70% tax pressure because of the COVID situation. Revolt now, go to revolution.
Yeah, man. Fight. Stand up, fight.
But I can say for damn sure that it's not going to be this dramatic. The most that is probably going to happen is a slight increase over years. Like we might see a tax pressure of 51% raising to maybe 53%, but that's it. We will not get near fucking 70.
So you think 53% income tax is perfectly acceptable?
No. I think like it should be more around like 40 or 50. But I would also, I would accept 53. I mean, I wouldn't accept 70, but I would accept 53.
Yeah.
If everything went to chaos and I still had a job, then would be okay.
That's still, that's
But
still a lot of
like
money.
it's funny. It's as long, I think, as long as it's not as much about the money. The money. Again, it is more about just actually being happy that you are fucking employed, because that's another thing, man. Like, there's because of this COVID and shit, there's a lot of people that are starting to become unemployed and are starting to actually just fucking walk around with no job and no income and paying no taxes and just actually just fucking ripping off the fucking this dagpenge and kontanthjelp and just fucking actually draining the system for this money, and that's fucking bad too. Like,
couple of things there. For the first, the cash help is only coming if you have less than $1,500 in your account. And this
but there's still a lot of people that are on it. I mean, sure, there's a minimum amount of money that you have to be under in order to get it. But that still doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of people who are on, and even more people who are on this dagpenge, which is we have to explain to our English listeners here what dagpenge is. The dagpenge is like day money. Yeah. No, it's not unemployment money. It's
let me explain. It is an insurance. It's an insurance. You pay to a union. Like $100-ish a month. And by paying those $100-ish a month, you're also getting insured, so that if you ever get unemployed, you will get a certain amount of money put into your account every month for as long as you're unemployed, for up till 2 years. That's what it is, an insurance. Are you still with us, Troy?
Yeah, I was just closing my window.
Yeah. So no, but I don't know, man. Like, I just, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, none of these people have any of my sympathy, because I was unemployed for months at the time before I got a job, or straight after getting that bullshit construction manager education.
Can we repeat again what people are we talking about here? I just missed that. What was
like everybody that is on dagpenge.
Yeah, but you were, what the fuck, man? You were on dagpenge just fucking 2 years ago. How can you, what the fuck, man?
Nobody was giving me the time of the day. I was all on my own, having to fight my way up. And all the bullshit that I was getting from the unions was that why don't you take a job as a cashier at a Netto or Rema 1000?
Oh yeah. By the way, now we're getting a little bit personal again. So should
Like,
should I should I like
no,
I
want
do want
to.
to comment. I do want to comment here.
Yeah, you can comment. You can
But it
comment after.
might get more personal. It might feel
You
like an
can comment.
attack on you.
You can comment after if it's an attack. If it's an attack on me.
It is
So
an attack. But like
this
I don't want to put it in here if it's
no.
if it's gonna be too personal.
So I'm going to move on a little bit now, as like what I wanted to move on to, is that the whole handling of the COVID-19 situation worldwide will eventually lead to global centralized world government. And the reason why that is going to happen is because when we start having more crises, because we are going to have more crises, like an environmental crisis, eco crisis, uh, world nature catastrophe crisis having impacts on the world, all that kinds of stuff.
And by
And
the
if we,
way, hold that thought there. A centralized government is one in which power or legal is exerted or coordinated by a political executive to which federal, states, local authorities, and smaller units are considered subject.
yeah,
That's just a basic definition from Wikipedia. But it's basically where you take a lot of governmental bodies all over the planet and put them together in one location so that you don't have the power in a lot of local communities. And of course, this can create a lot of problems because then you have essentially a king in medieval times was a sort of centralized government as well, an extremely centralized government that's actually as centralized
yeah,
as
yeah,
being a monarchy, for instance,
yeah.
is extremely centralized.
And when
So
we're talking world centralized, then I mean like the entire world under one government. Um,
yeah,
So, you're going to have all these other catastrophes and crises, and if they're all, or even just half of them, are handled as bad as the COVID-19 situation was handled, along with the major, major population increase we are going to see in the world, because in the next 150 years-ish, will be about 30 billion people in the world. You agree with that?
um, yeah.
Like
In how many years?
150.
100. Yeah, that could be. That could be. I mean, there are a lot of studies and sources out there on the internet that say that our population, the world population increase is going to flatten out in
Yeah,
2000, when we reach about 10 or 11 billion.
that is under the condition that that we will have an insane amount of people leaving the poverty zone, which
Yeah.
I which I don't think is going to happen in India anytime soon, in anywhere near the next decades, and I
No.
don't think it will happen in South America either, because we will always have these poverty zones and the majority of people in them.
Of course, there is also you could make the argument as well that especially in India and China where there is already overpopulation out the wazoo, that these countries will not be able to hold many more
No,
people because there already is a lot of poverty there and people are dying, and because of these, a lot of these people are dying, that also like stabilizes the population increase so that you can't, I mean, there has to be a point where, like, it's basic math, it's basic area mathematics. I mean, you have an area, and you can't stuff 2 billion more rabbits into an area where there can only be 1 billion rabbits.
here's a theory for you to ponder on. So, say we're starting to get this population increase. Amongst we have these crises that will also, be part of helping us to be more unemployed during these crises, since during crisis situation companies struggle and then companies fire. Correct?
Yeah, and by the way, I apologize for calling Chinese and Indian people rabbits. That was more
That's
to
fine.
illustrate the yeah.
That's fine. So ponder that unemployment together with more crisis, and
Yeah.
then more importantly, how the world is going regarding what we talked about in one of our latest podcasts that we recorded, with that more and more jobs are getting automated,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah.
so which means that no matter what, no matter what, we will have a large population of people, an even bigger and even bigger part of the population home, because of home and unemployed because of it.
Mm.
And regardless if these people are poor or not, are getting an incentive from the world government, which is what I believe, because cheaper it is cheaper to just pay, and give everybody, like, just a certain amount of money
Yeah, it
every
is. I
month,
mean,
as opposed
as opposed to a system where if an individual fails, where like a lot of people are saying, yeah, but like if you don't have a job, then you gotta take what you can, and if you
yeah.
can't take what you can, then that's where their argument stops. But their argument can't stop at that point because, well, unless you kill them like a
And
cheetah
that's
in the African savannah, they will retaliate and
yeah.
they will fucking turn to other means, which is stealing and turn into criminals.
So by not having a system where you pay them, then you will just
Then
have
they will use other means to take, and
yeah,
like
you
the
would
very liberal people say. They say you're gonna take your job, you gotta take what you can in this world, and then they will misinterpret that because they can take a job,
and
because
then
all the people who do take the jobs, they have taken the jobs, and then these people that can't get a job, they're like, no, then we'll just resort to other means of taking, because we do have to live, we do have to exist in some way, and then
yeah,
they just take in another way.
yeah.
They create jobs, which is they become criminals and steal stuff instead.
So we would essentially end up with a Mad Max world with a bunch of outlaw gangs,
Yeah,
huge outlaw gangs living on the outskirts of town and stuff, and then riding in on raiding parties to towns and stuff, just taking what they needed. And then
yeah,
you will
exactly.
and then you will have like a massive bloodshed that way, because then you will like have an ongoing eternal war, because this faction and the government faction, who's like sending police and soldiers to combat these.
Yeah, yeah,
So you would have like so this would just create like a never ending expenditure for the government,
yeah,
which
exactly.
is
Which is why it is actually cheaper just to pay, like we have it in Denmark. We have a brilliant system in Denmark where we just pay these let's just call them losers, the people that have a hard time finding a job, where we just pay them a little amount of money so that they're above the poverty line, so that they at least can exist and work on their themselves and try to get into a place where they can have a career, and where they can have an upward spiral, where
for
they
sure,
can
for sure.
escape, to
Yeah,
quote T-Back here from Prison Break, where they can escape the captivity of negativity.
yeah. So that is like, in my opinion, the pieces that is eventually going to be led to that we're going to have a world global centralized government, because there is
Yeah,
simply there is simply no other way to go at it. And it can't be like, that we are in the US, we are going to be in charge of the centralized government. No, 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 we China are going to be in charge of centralized government,
but the problem
right?
with yeah, yeah, but the
So you will have one organ that is going to take control over it all, which will be the United Nations. Because nobody can argue that the United Nations have an economical motive to have the power of the world, nor a power motive, just to be in control. Because the United Nations has everybody's general interest at their best as their motive. You understand?
Yeah, I understand,
So,
but
so it will be,
the yeah.
what? Yeah, you finish.
No, the problem with the UN is that they I mean all they are is in it, it lies in the word itself, United Nations. They are just a collection of all the nations combined, and
But eventually that can change. And
especially these five countries that have the veto right, which is Russia, China, the U.S., England, and France. They can at any point just put in a veto and say, no, we're not going to do this, and roll back any decision that the UN makes. This is
yeah,
UN parliamentary procedure. And
yeah,
that and that's and that goes all the way back to the Second World War, where they insisted on this as the because of the Cold War. Also because of the Cold War, there was these tensions between Russia and America.
well,
That
yeah, then I could see this scenario happening.
yeah.
That then Russia and China would simply just be cut out, and the rest of the world would become this.
How?
And
How?
and
You can't do
I
that.
don't.
Russia and China still have the veto, right?
Yeah, but they can say fuck that. We are the rest of the world.
Oh,
We have the military force to say fuck you. So fuck you.
ah, man.
Right?
If we have learned anything from the Cold War, it is that doing that would just reignite the Cold War actually, and bring Russia, but probably we might not even happen. Maybe Russia and China will say, no, we'll join. We'll make our own UN now, and
You're
then there would be the tension again between
you're
East and
you're
West.
yeah, you're mistaking the situation. Imagine the global pressure we will be under in 50, 60, 70 years with the population, with poverty, with crime. It would be enormous. If we're saying that let's say just that in a 200-year range, we will have an unemployment rate between 40 and 50% worldwide out of 35 billion people.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you think is going to happen then? Where you have half the world getting nickels and dimes, living day to day on chump change, desperate for anything, desperate for scraps, and no jobs to go around because everything will be automated, and there will be decades of waiting lines to get into university to become a doctor or lawyer. What the fuck do you think is going to happen then?
I don't
We're
know.
going
I don't know.
to
But then
have
again,
it will
we're talking
it will
about
it will it will be
we're talking about something that is so far. I mean, we're talking
yes,
about large scale
yes.
society science here, and like I am
And
in no position. Like my, in fact, the
this
only background I have in this political science thing is a high school degree where I had it on. We have it on B level here in Denmark, which is like in Denmark, the last year of high school is like the first year of college in the U.S. That's what I've heard anyway. Um, but like, yeah, that's all the foundation I have. So I'm in no position to actually be able to really see
all
what
all
would
I
go on
am
there.
all I am saying is that this episode of the corner is a message to this is a message to those who choose to heed it, and a warning to those who choose to don't.
By the way, what is your background discussing political discussing a political world agenda?
I have studied 1 year at university political. I think.
Yeah. But that, I mean, it doesn't mean that we are unqualified to talk about it. It just means that we might not be
Okay,
the
okay.
persons who have the most thorough knowledge about this. I mean,
I
all we can really do is
I will
study
say
up on is study up on like read articles that are newly released and study up on sources which are under Wikipedia. So we can present you with that, but we can't. We haven't experienced it on our own.
yeah,
Um,
I'll just
so we just have to, like, especially when we talk about political agenda, like a centralized world government, which this is. We
fun.
don't have the thorough knowledge enough.
Okay, here is my educational background. I had 1 year studying political science at the university. Then I have a bachelor degree in culture and arts.
Yeah, but you can't use that to discuss
Then
governments. You can't use that to discuss
then
governments.
I have an AP degree in construction and business. So now
But
I
you, you,
I can
you you can't use that to discuss
um,
politics either.
yeah, but I'm still feeling like we can discuss politics. We are not unaware of what's happening in the world. We are awake.
Actually, I just
Anyway,
like I disagree. I disagree on that point actually, because like one of the big philosophers of ancient Greece said, I think it was Socrates who said it. All I know is that I don't know anything. And actually, let me just pull up that quote right here quickly. Sorry for the keystrokes. You're just gonna have to take that, guys. Yeah, no. All I know, yeah, there it is. All I know is that I know nothing, which was
Socrates.
Socrates. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
that that basically means, like, and especially people who have studied at university, academics know this. Like, when you study, you only study, you read so much and so thoroughly that you come to realize that you actually only know a slice of the whole truth. There's no way that you will ever be able to know the whole truth of anything that you're studying, because there's simply so much, because the world is simply so complicated. And as one person, one individual, you will never be able to know everything. And I believe that I support Socrates in that way. There's nobody as an individual who will ever know everything that's going on in the world and in the political system, for that matter. Which is why it is stupid to give some person like Trump, who says, I know what's best for this country. Which is why it's stupid to give a guy like that all the power, because the best way to know what's going on in an entire country is to ask as many people as you can, because it's only through unity, it's only like through seeing a subject from different views that we will actually be able to explore the whole truth, by having not just a second set of eyes, but having 1,000 set of eyes. I mean, it's really this simple. Like, you agree with this, right? If you have, let's just say, you have a problem. You have a text. You have a text that you have written, which you've written that in maybe half an hour, but there's most likely going to be a spelling error in it. And how are you ever going to find that spelling error unless you get someone else to read it through? Like, someone else might be able to catch that error much better than yourself. because you have what you call text blindness. This is a thing. I could pull it up for you, but I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I believe it. But I will say thank you for coming on to this week's podcast, Troy.
Oh
I will
yeah, you're
count
welcome.
it. I will count.
I hope you enjoyed my new voice. It wasn't a cheap microphone, but also not the most expensive either.
Yeah, well, it was certainly an improvement, and I really hope that my
Yeah,
voice is coming out clear as well to all you listeners.
yeah, it's definitely
And
fine for me. So
okay, that's good. And then I look forward to see you all on the next tuning in for the next episode of The Corner coming out in about a week's time.